Welcome back to the Adaptive Athlete Podcast, the place for conversations with adaptive athletes in the CrossFit space and beyond. I'm your host, Matt Hotho. On today's episode, I'm talking with Sam Fishman. Sam is the founder and full-time adaptive CrossFit coach behind Anybody and Everybody. She's based out of CrossFit Palace in Ithaca, New York. Sam's background is extensive. She's been a swim instructor since she was 12. She became a speech pathologist, earned a master's in special education, and then spent years in emergency medical services, first as an EMT, then as a paramedic, including on the front lines during COVID. And through all of it, she's been an advocate for her students, for her patients, for the athletes she supports as a medical volunteer at the WheelWOD Games. Advocacy is who Sam is. And when she opened Anybody and Everybody in September of 2024, she knew access was going to be a barrier for a lot of people. So she didn't stop with just opening a gym. Sam founded the Anybody Everybody Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit that provides financial assistance to make adaptive and inclusive CrossFit accessible to the greater Ithaca community. When she looked at crowdsourcing platforms and saw how much they were taking, she built her own infrastructure. That's Sam. So today we talk about what it actually looks like to coach adaptive athletes with disabilities and medically complex conditions. From a 4-year-old with cerebral palsy who calls her wheelchair Wheelie to a client Sam has known since he was 7 years old. We get into what it looks like to be successful with adaptive athletes on the gym floor and what it takes to serve on the medical team at a major adaptive event. So here's my conversation with Sam Fishman. Welcome back to the Adaptive Athlete Podcast. I'm here today with Sam Fishman. Sam, how's it going?
It is a beautiful day in central New York. I cannot complain.
I love it. I love it. We were just talking before we went live about teaching me some of the geography of New York. I had family on Long Island, spent some time in New York City when my sister was there, but never got to much else in New York. And so when you were telling me about Ithaca, and I was like, oh, those lakes look like fingers. Are those the Finger Lakes? And it was like, oh, that's what that is.
Yes, you got it. Exactly.
I'm putting it all together. One little corner of the United States at a time.
Totally. Yep.
Also, I didn't realize Rhode Island was like north of Long Island. And then also like Nantucket and all of that's like north of Long Island. I don't know.
It's all complicated up here. Yeah.
It is. It doesn't make any sense. Florida, you've just got Florida. It's very
exactly. Right.
Well, we were also saying before we hopped on that you just got done working with one of your clients at your adaptive coaching program. So tell me a little bit about this client, and then we'll talk about your adaptive coaching program that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am now a full-time adaptive CrossFit coach. I tell people that I work with people with disabilities and also people who are medically complex, whatever that means to a person. And today was kind of a nice day. I only had 2 clients. The last young lady who I worked with, she came in kind of having a rough day. She's a person with autism and ADHD. And so today, us being successful was 2 minutes on the C2 and then 2-minute breaks. And so essentially doing intervals. She would do 2 minutes of paddling and then tell me that she wanted a break. We would set the wall timer, it would count down, and she would get a 2-minute break. And that was very successful for her today, especially because she came in kind of worried about some other things and, had her mind on other things outside of the gym. But yeah, we had a great time.
There's nothing I feel like that calms the mind quite like a long workout. Whereas like I've got 15 rounds of this. I mean, mathematically, I don't know how many, if you did the full hour, that'd be 15 rounds of 2 on 2 off.
Right.
And I would imagine that to just have to keep track of that would calm the mind in some way.
It is. And it gave her some semblance of control, but also some practice. Like she knew after 2 minutes, she got to take a break. It was some time to practice, like saying, hey, I need a break, and knowing that what that meant and what that looked like. Both her and the client who I saw before her, they like to tell me how long their break will be and what the timer is going to do. So is it going to count up? Is it going to count down? The kiddo before her, he is very specific about whether it's 2 minutes or 3 minutes and if it's going to count up or count down, and he'll change it up each time. She likes the routine of it was 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off. But it's finding success in the little things. And for her today, it was just going back and forth between curling up on a box and taking a break and being on the C2 bike.
And she got some exercise and some fitness.
Exactly.
Yeah, you were telling me, and we might touch on this a little bit later in the podcast as well, but right now let's just touch on it for a minute. The idea that like these athletes that you're working with, this is accessible fitness for them. Right.
Exactly.
This is the level of fitness that they have. And I think sometimes for us in the CrossFit space, especially the adaptive competitive CrossFit space, we're anxious to talk about, hey, have you figured out kipping pull-ups or, butterfly pull-ups? And you're working with a population that's like, wait a second, we just committed to ourselves to do an interval of C2 biking, whatever that looks like, for an hour. And that's a win.
Yeah. Yep. I think a lot about what success is for my clients. And right now, oftentimes getting here and knowing the routine of getting here, taking their outside shoes off, putting their outside shoes on, waiting their turn to come in, things that are quite difficult at times, they learn those routines. On the weekends, so my schedule, some of the time the gym is open, some of the time the gym is closed. And so on weekends, I often work with people who having the gym open and the commotion and the beauty that is a busy CrossFit gym is just not ideal for them.
Yeah.
So some of the folks who come on the weekends, we keep the lights off, we turn the music off, it is not uncommon for whatever I plan for them to get thrown out the window. And like today, we just go back and forth between sitting on a box and a C2 bike. But that's why I love what I do and having the flexibility time-wise. So the gym is closed. It's just me and my dog here. And that allows my clients, it allows me to control some of the controllables and allows them to be successful no matter what kind of day they're having.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your business that you do where you're training these adaptive athletes.
Absolutely. So I own a business called Anybody and Everybody. I am located within CrossFit Palace in Ithaca, New York. I opened September 1st of 2024. And like I said, I coach people with disabilities and also people who are medically complex, teaching folks how to move their bodies. My youngest client is now 4. My oldest client is in their 70s. And truly, if a person comes in or shoots me a text and says, hey, I really want to start working out, but a traditional gym setting doesn't work for me. And going into a CrossFit class doesn't feel right. That's my happy place. I love it. Yeah.
And I like that name. Anybody and everybody, like that is who it is for. And I think that also connects to, I think, Jenna with Fit to Function also says something about every body, like movement for every body type almost, is kind of what the way it's broken up, 2 words.
Yeah. She taught my ATA class. She was one of the people who taught my ATA class.
Okay.
And she has been a wonderful resource. As I was starting the business, I would shoot her an email like, hey, what do I do about X, Y, and Z? And she has been a super helpful resource in terms of like running ideas by her and saying like, hey, how does this work? What am I doing?
Yeah. So
awesome.
What started you in wanting to do this service, this adaptive journey that you went on?
Yeah.
I know you became an adaptive trainer in 2023, but I mean, even before then, like what made you want to like, okay, this is something I want to do?
So this goes kind of way, way back. I've been a swim instructor since I was 12. I grew up at a YMCA. I did all the classes. I was on the swim team. I played water polo, and basically they needed more for me to do. And so I started teaching swimming. And I taught swimming through high school. I was part of the Best Buddies program in high school. I went to college. I went to Ithaca College. That's how I ended up here. And my second class that I walked into was a class it's now called Understanding Disability. And the woman who taught that, she is now my boss at the YMCA here. She's a very good friend, but that class and that person made, she steered me in the direction of who I am today. That class it was incredible. It was just, it was all about just learning about people and specific disabilities and person first language. And these things that 20 years ago, they weren't talked about. We didn't know. I
Yeah.
didn't know. So I became her TA, TA'd for her for a couple of years, finished my degree and became a speech pathologist. Worked as a speech path for 4 years, got my master's in special ed because I thought that that's the direction I wanted to go.
Yeah.
I did that for a year, almost 2 years, and realized the school system was just not for me. There were too many politics. That was just not my forte. So during all of this, like, I am super active. I've always been super active. I was a swimmer growing up. I love to move. I became an EMT and kind of took a break from the like education side of things. Became an EMT, became a paramedic, and started CrossFit myself in 2017.
Okay.
A coach from a different type of gym brought me here to Palace. She worked out here. And she brought me here on the first day of the open. And she's like, come check it out. It'll be fun. So kind of fast forward, I continued working in different capacities within the community. Even when I was working as a paramedic, I recognized that there was a need for more programs for people with disabilities here. Mm-hmm. I stayed in touch with the person who had taught me. And I just realized, like, as much as I love this community, and I do love this community, there was this need for more adaptive programs. Yeah. And so fast forward again, I had a dream one night that I was going to start a business called Anybody and Everybody. I didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't know why. I knew nothing other than I woke up in the morning, pulled out my little notebook and wrote Anybody and Everybody down. And life being life, I went from it being something I thought I would do part-time to September 1st, 2024. Here we go. We're doing this full time.
Wow. I mean, what a journey. I think it's
been a wild ride.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful the way you kind of described it of I ended up in college. I took this class, Understanding Disability, TA'd for this teacher because I think this is so interesting. And I know what that experience is like. I had a Hebrew Bible professor that I was like, this stuff is amazing. And so I was like, I'm going to be a research assistant, Unlike your story, though, I'm not doing anything with Hebrew Bible now, and I don't have an idea of starting a Hebrew Bible business. Wow, this really went sideways. But nevertheless, back to you. So, but you like it so much that you TA for this person, and then it just kind of sits there for a little bit. And I think that's beautiful when you're like, okay, I'm going to go do speech language pathology, do special education, get a master's in special ed, and then be an EMT. You always wanted to help people. But now you're kind of figuring out, okay, what does that look like? And then that realization that like, this is the thing.
Exactly. And it was really neat. Like my first job in this community in Ithaca was as, at the time it was called a community support staff, but essentially like a direct service professionals, I think what they call them now. But I worked with a young man who has autism, and we would just do things out and about. I would bring him, he loves Target. We'd go to Target. Sometimes I rode horses. We'd go to the barn. We would go to the Y. Like we would just do things. And, I knew that like, I knew something was going to come of this. It just took me quite a long time to figure out how I was going to put all those pieces together. And really cool thing, he and I met, I was 19 and he was 7, and he is now one of my clients.
Oh, wow.
So his family and I have stayed really close. I went to his bar mitzvah. I was actually his speech path for a year. And so when I started my business, his mom emailed me and was like, is this you? And I said, yeah. And she said, me. How do we sign up? And I was like, come on over. So he comes every Saturday, and we laugh because we've known each other for more than half my life. And since he was 7, and it's pretty cool how it's been a journey, but it's all come together.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you had been a swimmer active at the Y in that regard, teaching swimming, and you teach adaptive swimmers, which is how you also met another one of your clients.
Exactly.
Which is really cool.
Exactly. So the same professor who I had in college, she put out a Facebook plea a couple of years ago looking for adaptive swim instructors. I had been a swim instructor forever. I had actually decided that I was retired. I was done teaching. I love teaching swimming, but I'd done it forever. I just didn't fathom that I'd be back in the pool. Um, and then I see this post that she needs Adaptasm instructors. And so I think I texted her and said, all right, like, let's talk about it. And so I started teaching for her at our local YMCA. And we have the best time. I teach on Tuesdays. We essentially teach a group lesson or group lessons, but each of the people we work with are one-to-one with an instructor.
Okay.
And one of the kids who I work with, I started working with her one-on-one when she was 2. And I started one-on-one lessons with her two years ago now. And she, again, when I started the business, I said to her parents, like, hey, I know she's pretty young, but do you want to start CrossFit? And they were like, yes, let's do it.
Start him young. Start him
exactly.
young. Yeah.
So now at 4, she comes in every week and she loves to work out. She loves talking about being strong and getting strong. Yeah. She uses sign language as her primary language. And so for quite a long time, she would sign like everybody in here is strong. So she's learning like this is what we do, right? We are strong. We are getting strong. We are here to be strong. She is a young lady with CP. She uses a walker and now has her first manual wheelchair, which she calls her wheelie, and she loves it. It is bright pink. It lights up. It has butterflies on it. But she has really taken to recently, she is all about shoulder to overhead with her barbell, which is it's a colorful PVC pipe. And she also loves ring rows. And she'll do them from her chair, but she loves, that's been her kind of excitement recently, is going back and forth between those.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, just beautiful that she has this place to go at 4 years old where she is seeing what strength looks like, is seeing that other people can be strong, and she's getting celebrated when she walks in with wheelie or wheels in with wheelie, that people are excited to work out with her, you know, and she sees adults that are excited for her.
Yeah. She has her people, and she will say hi to people, and she's gotten much more, she's a pretty social kid, but she's gotten much more social here. And if she doesn't, she has to say hi to everybody. She has certain coaches who she knows really well and certain other athletes who she knows well. And so she, a big part of it is the social aspect for her, and making sure that all of her people know that she's here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's awesome. What I love about your story, Sam, is that I think there's somebody listening who's like, man, I've always wanted to do this. Yeah. And I think they may be listening going, this is possible. And these are some of the people whose lives I could impact by taking a chance and teaching, adaptive fitness to a broad base of people.
Exactly. If you had asked me 5 years ago if I was going to be a small business owner, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a business person. I'm a teacher. I have been a teacher in some way, shape, or form for a very long time. 5 years ago, I was a paramedic working on the ambulance during COVID, doing the COVID thing. Fast forward now, I work for myself. I bring my dog to work. I would never have imagined that I get to combine all of these things that I love into working for myself. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. I absolutely love it.
That's awesome. This episode is brought to you by Equip Products, the leader in adaptive fitness and therapy equipment. If you're a seated athlete, you know that the lap mat is a game changer. It protects your lap during barbell work, lets you train harder, and is trusted by athletes all the way to the CrossFit Games. Built for adaptive athletes by people who get it. Check them out at equipproducts.com. And now back to the show. So we're going to switch gears to talk about a way that a lot of athletes who listen to this podcast might know you, which is from your serving as a volunteer on the medical team at the WheelWOD Games.
Yes, absolutely.
So how did you discover that? And for anybody who wants to do something like that, how do you get to be a part of the medical team at the WheelWOD Games?
So I work out of Palace Fitness, CrossFit Palace in Ithaca, and one of the previous owners was involved with the Masters Fitness Collective. And so I had reached out to him saying like, hey, I'm interested in getting into CrossFit event medicine. I was working as a paramedic at the time, and we did a lot of sports events, and that was my favorite part of being a medic. I love all things community sports. I love being in the ambulance, standing by, talking to people, showing people the ambulance. And so he got me involved with MFC, and I went there as my first event. I went out to Indiana to Fort Wayne. And that was my first event as a medic. And I learned a lot. But I also got to make some really cool connections. And it's through those connections that I met one of the people who's like one of the kind of gurus of event medicine. And he got me sort of involved with working the games. So I worked the Legends games in summer of 2024. And then I came to San Antonio and worked WheelWOD. And absolutely love it. So for people who have a background in medicine, whether that's EMS, whether that's nursing, whether they are pre-med, PAs, nurse practitioners, docs, if you are interested in being a volunteer, all you really have to do is reach out, right? Having some medical background is necessary. It's definitely easier for those of us like in EMS, right? We're used to dropping everything and being kind of that go. We're very used to like quick assessment and getting a person off the floor, or saying, nope, we're going to stop everything right now and take care of this person until we can move them safely. But that's one of the fun things about event medicine, is that I have worked with all sorts of people. And there's a huge range of folks who end up on these med teams.
Yeah, you were telling me that like there are doctors, nurses, all kinds of people, which is really cool.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah.
So if someone wants to volunteer, can they reach out to WheelWOD, or how did you, I think you said you reached out through someone that you met at another event, but.
Yeah. So I have reached out, or I got involved through Josh Hicks. But I'd say that for events kind of around the country, when the volunteer, usually for me, it's Instagram is like the volunteer posts come up saying, okay, looking for volunteers. I would say put in a volunteer application that way and specify medical, and explain, why you want to be on the medical team, what your background is, what certs you have, kind of why you think that'll be a good fit. And I think that's your best bet. You can also reach out to me directly. I'm more than happy to like talk to people about what I've, the different events, and get people in touch for those events.
Okay, cool. I'll put your Instagram handle in the show notes so that people can reach out to you.
Cool.
How long were your days at the WheelWOD Games this past year in 25?
They were really long. They were really long. I think the best way to describe event medicine is that it is pretty proper type 2 fun. So it's really not particularly fun while you're doing it.
Okay.
The days are long, you're hungry, you're thirsty, your feet hurt, your back hurts. Like during the day, it's not really the most fun. But at the end of the day and at the end of the event, it's amazing. And you look back on it and say, wow, I loved that. But I don't remember. They were long days. You pretty much plan on solid 12-hour days on your feet. Your feet are really going to hurt. Your back's going to hurt. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be thirsty.
And how like on alert are you the whole time? Like, I don't know what alertness is like for like I don't work in the medical field, so I don't quite know, but is it full alert the whole time, or are you kind of...
No, so we have the opportunity to be on and off. And I have been lucky enough to be a floor lead for several events. And so I am often the person who is like helping decide who's on the floor and when. Okay. And I work really hard to make sure that people are not on the whole time, because it is impossible to have that level of acuity for a long period of time. I was an ocean lifeguard for a long time. And in lifeguarding, we wouldn't sit for more than absolute max of 45 minutes at a time. Oh, wow. Because you just can't focus on the ocean and the people and what's happening well after that period of time. So I've taken those principles to like the floor in event medicine. So you're definitely on and off. That doesn't mean, I mean, even when you're off, if somebody comes into the clinic and needs help, you're there to help.
Yeah.
If there's a true emergency and you hear it, if you hear those words and there's a true emergency, you're on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Like that thing, that instinct just will kick in and then you're on. Yeah. I like what you said though about lifeguarding. That makes a ton of sense. If you've got to, you can't stay alert longer than like 45 minutes. So just rotate people in and out and that.
Exactly.
Kind of yeah.
And it's funny, like, my brother was at WheelWOD this past year with me. And he actually pointed out that my head never stays still. And I get this from lifeguarding. My head is always on a swivel.
Mm-hmm.
I am not watching anything in particular because my eyes are always moving. My head's always moving. I'm not watching for one particular person. I'm watching everything, both the athletes, the crowd, people coming through. Like my eyes are always moving, my head's always moving. And I get that from lifeguarding.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's a rewarding or a memorable moment or two from serving on the WheelWOD team or volunteering on the WheelWOD team?
So my favorite part of doing this are the people who I meet. And it's usually having that moment where, like, in San Antonio, that first event when it was unbelievably hot,
mm-hmm.
I met an athlete who was down on the ground, and I basically went over and said, "How can I help?" And her name is Abby. She lives in the UK. She's become a really good friend. Abby Wynne Jones. She's an absolute hoot. And
she is.
They basically told me what they needed and how I could help them. And that became a friendship. I went to visit them last summer and got to work out with her and her coach. I got to visit the UK and explore the UK. But that's why I do this, right? The people who I meet. When you were coming off the floor, you said to me, like, we were kind of arm in arm, and you said, "Can I take a minute and just look around?" And you actually made me stop and look around, right? Taking not just that physical stop, but can we take a minute and look? You made me stop and say, "Wow, this is really cool." Because it's hard to have those moments, right? When you're going and you're tired and you're all those things, to take a moment with an athlete and just look where you are and look around and take it in. Those are the moments that are absolutely the best.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's why my counselor always challenges me to be like, remember how good this felt. Stop and think about, take in the moment when you can.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm glad we were able to do that together.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, can I interest you in a lightning round?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So what is one goal that you are working towards right now outside of fitness?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I love to learn new things. And so I am always looking at what I can learn and where I can learn it. Mm-hmm. Specifically, let me table that one because there's a few of them on the top of my head.
All right, deal. We'll come back to that at the end of the lightning round. If there's one movement in CrossFit that you can just axe, what movement is never coming back?
Wall balls and thrusters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wall balls and thrusters. I hate them. Okay. Absolutely hate them.
Then you might not like the open. given that those always show up in the open.
Always. Yep.
Always. Yep. Without fail. All right. If you've got control of Spotify for a workout, what are we listening to?
I like the big booty mixes. I like an hour of just those snippets of songs that that you can sing along to, but you don't have enough time to get bored.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put a big booty mix on and I'm probably going to blast it.
And like sometimes they throw in like a meme or like a movie clip and you're like, I needed that right then.
Yes, exactly.
I didn't know I needed that line from Anchorman, but that was the line I needed to get through this workout.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. Fill in the blank. Adaptation has taught me blank.
Oh, adaptation has taught me creativity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's one thing you've gotten to do this creative? Yeah. With an athlete.
Prior to doing this, I would not have said that I was a creative person. That's just not an adjective that I would use. And what I have gotten to realize is that a huge part of this is getting creative with your goals, right? So changing your goals, but also how you're going to get there. And also figuring out what success means. And I think that is, like the young lady who I referenced to, 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, that was success for her. Sometimes for my clients, coming in and knowing the routines is success. Sometimes picking their equipment up and getting set up themselves is success. But I think that, creativity would be my fill in the blank there.
Awesome. I love that. And then let's circle back to that first question, that one goal outside of fitness that you're working towards.
So I would say being a little bit kinder to myself is not necessarily the best, like SMART goal, like measurable and attainable and all of that. But I am working on giving myself a little bit of grace and being a little bit kinder to myself, and changing the expectations that I have. I think I often hold myself to unattainable expectations. And so I'm really working on just softening that a little bit and finding success in the little things.
Yeah. Do you find that your self-talk can be negative sometimes towards yourself?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah. That is one of the things that I am trying to be more aware of, is what that inner monologue sounds like.
Do you have any skills that have worked for you in kind of improving that inner monologue?
I think catching it in the moment and just the awareness is where I'm at right now. I still often recognize that I am holding myself to it's just impossible, right? The things that I'm asking of myself or expecting of myself, they're not realistic. And when I think about it in terms of like, would I ask somebody else to do that? Or the answer is no.
Right.
No.
Right.
I would never say that to a friend. I would never say that to a client. Why am I saying that to myself?
Why am I holding myself to a standard that I wouldn't hold someone else to? An impossible standard, right?
Exactly. Like, why do I not deserve success when I feel that everybody else does? I do too.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we wrap up the interview, I've got 2 final questions for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
If someone's listening to this podcast and they want to start an adaptive program or do something like you're doing with anybody and everybody, what would you tell them to get them started?
I would say take the plunge. Just take the plunge, right? Do it scared. I wouldn't say like, don't wait, right? Don't wait until you're ready. You're never going to be ready. But if it's something that sounds like it's in your wheelhouse and you want to do it and you're excited for it, then do it. I think that, again, I'm not a business person. I've learned as I went. I've made mistakes. I'm learning from those mistakes. Yeah. I think the important thing is just to, dive in. Just dive in, if you will. And don't be afraid of the mistakes. Just be ready to learn from them.
Great. And then final question. If you could go back and encourage a younger version of yourself, what would you tell her?
Along the same lines as the self-talk, I think that I would encourage her to be more confident, and to believe in herself more than she does. I'm not a confident person. I'm very much a fake it till you make it kind of gal. But telling a younger me to, first of all, that it's going to be okay. It's going to work out, that you don't have to plan it all out. There are no real plans. But to listen to my gut and, believe in yourself, because those things would have really helped me when I was younger. It took, approaching 40 and turning 40 for me to realize like, oh, I have these skills. I'm kind of good at some things, and that's okay. Do it. It's okay.
Yeah. I was sitting next to an older gentleman at church today, and he and I were just catching up, and I was talking about how, I hit my stride. Like, I feel like in my mid 30s to late 30s. And he goes, that's a great place to hit your stride. And I was like, that's so good to hear from someone who's like way further down the road, to just be like, it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely say that, Starting around 35, it has been some of my hardest years, but also hands down the best time of my life. And I have finally figured out who I am and what that means and where my place is in the world and how I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And Sam, you're right. You have found your place. And thank you so much for everything you do for the adaptive athletes at the WheelWOD Games when you support us and help us stay safe. And thank you for everything you're doing for the people in your local community, for N and for the other athletes that you work with. I know you're making a big difference.
Yeah, I love it. I appreciate that.
Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Of course. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks so much for joining us for this conversation. You know, Sam is doing something that a lot of people talk about, but very few actually build. She's meeting people exactly where they are every day and redefining what winning looks like in a CrossFit gym. Whether it's 2 minutes on a C2 bike for an athlete who just needed to show up, or ring rows in a pink wheelchair for a 4-year-old who loves being strong, Sam's work is proof that this sport can genuinely be for everybody and for anybody. And she's put the infrastructure behind that belief, from the coaching floor to a 501c3 foundation. If you want to connect with Sam or support what she's building, her coaching business is Anybody and Everybody, and you can find the foundation and learn how to donate or apply for financial assistance at anybodyeverybody.org. Her Instagram handle is also linked in the show notes. And this is for anybody who's been thinking about giving back to the adaptive community, whether you have a medical background or you just want to volunteer. The WheelWOD Games needs volunteers, including on the medical team. So if you're in EMS, nursing, pre-med, or you're not and you just want to volunteer as a judge or generally at the Adaptive CrossFit Games, this is one of the best ways to be a part of this community. The link to register is in the show notes. I actually went to that page and registered myself today. It's really easy. They walk you through all the different opportunities that you have to volunteer, what's involved in them, and you can pick your top 4, and then they'll sort you into the appropriate one for you. You don't have to commit to the entire week of the CrossFit Games either. You can just commit to the Masters Games, the Adaptive Games, or the Teen Games, whichever is right for you. Hey, if this episode hit for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a review, hit subscribe, and help more people find this community. I'm Matt Hotho, and I'll see you next time.